So we have everything cleaned and ready to go for the engine. Before I do all that though, I want to get the rest of the car ready. So what I'm going to start off with is going to do all the brakes. I have all the stuff for that in the back of the car there. While I'm doing that, I'm going to replace this boot on the steering rack. Shouldn't be too hard. While I'm under there, I'll go ahead and get the engine mounts replaced, just so that's all ready to go. Everything else looks pretty good. I might look at these sway bar bushings. They seem a little tore up, but we'll start with that boot, the bushings, and the brakes. So right now I'm working on the engine and transmission mounts. This is the mounting point for one of the engine mounts here, the one that was tore off. I'll get that one off soon. But you can see it kind of just sheared off there completely, which is interesting. Super dirty. Can't have that attached to my brand new clean engine, so that's soaking in some degreaser. I'll clean that off. And in the meantime, I am going to get this whole bracket for the transmission set up. This thing bolts on right about there with this thing here. I think I went over this in a previous video, but it's got the two bushings there, which these are all old, and then this main guy here that I'll have to hammer out because this thing is supposed to be attached in the middle of that. So I'm going to get all this cleaned up, get that hammered out, press the new one in, get new bushings, and then I can just attach it right on there. I didn't really record any of it, but this is all of the transmission stuff back on the transmission. Got this main bushing under here. I had to hammer that out and then hammer a new one back in. Wasn't too hard. And then the brand new bushings on the side there. That Y bracket has a post, bolts in there, bolts to the transmission right there. And then these two bushings go to this bigger bracket, which bolts into the chassis. And then there's this little cover plate. So that's all good. When the engine gets rebuilt, I'll attach that to the engine and then lower the whole thing into the car as one unit. Brakes are pretty easy. There's these two 17mm bolts on the back of the caliper here that just go into those two holes right there. Then you got just two holding screws for the rotor here. So we'll get those off, rotor will come off. Take the brake pads out of there. I got a hardware kit too, so that shouldn't be too hard to all install. Once I get this off, I'm gonna clean up everything that's back here since I've been cleaning everything else up. And then I'm going to get this boot off. Looks like I'll have to take this linkage off here so I can slide that off. I'll just make sure I mark exactly where it was screwed onto so my alignment stays the same. And yeah, another cool thing about this Rx-7 is that there's these ducts here that run right back into the wheel wells, and you can see the intakes on the front of the car there. So yeah, just the more you know, I guess. Alright, so we're cleaning up down here. See, that looks quite a bit nicer now, I think. When I was doing all this stuff was not as tight as probably it should be, so I retightened these bolts. The set screws on the rotors were not really tight at all, which those aren't that important, but you know. So I'm going to clean off the calipers too, since those are just kind of dirty looking. Those will probably clean up real nice. These bushings are the ones I was talking about. So let's see, those bushings for the sway bars, and then these on the ends here. These are just completely tore up, as you can see. And then those shouldn't be too hard, just two bolts right there, and then just hammer the bushings out, hammer new ones back in. Hopefully that ends up real nice. Here are the sway bar end links. As you can see, these guys are all tore up. This one isn't as bad as the other one, but you can see pretty bad. It's not really straight in there. The other one was worse though. but this one's pretty bad too. I used this vise and turned it to press out the inside ones, or the other ones, I mean. You can see there's still a bunch of stuff that's just really stuck in there, which I'll have to get out. But do that for these two guys here. Kit with new bushings is on the way. I thought I had the ones I needed, but I didn't. So, order new kit of those for the front and the rear. I will do all the rear sway bar bushings and such when I do the rear wheels, which will be after I do all the front wheels. So that's something to look forward to. But each of those had two 14mm bolts with nuts on the end. Just those there. Sway bar right here. You can see it's loose on both sides. And then there is 4 more, looks like 12mm bolts for the bushings onto the chassis itself. Gonna go ahead and just take the whole sway bar out since I have new chassis bushings that go to the chassis. So we'll take that out, and then we'll see what we're working with. Here's that sway bar out. Here are the old bushings. I'm guessing they're supposed to be cut like this, probably for ease of installation or something. But they actually don't look that bad. But I do have these, and they are stiffer, and they are brand new, so I don't see a reason not to. Go ahead and throw those guys in there. Like I said, still waiting on the parts for that. But these I should be able to just get on there pretty easy. It has like instructions or something in here, so I'm sure it's not too hard. But here's the sway bar. We'll get these replaced. While I'm waiting for those parts to be delivered there, what I'll just do the rest of today is the engine mounts are just 1 bolt on the subframe for each of those guys, and gonna get that boot, and I'm gonna go ahead and fix the camber on these. Looks like it's maxed out, but there's actually 2 holes behind here, so we can do that, give it just a few more degrees, which I think will just make it match the back a little more, since you can see the back has a little camber. Alright, got these new ones on. These ones were the same, they just had like a slit in the side right there. So they just kind of wrapped around, you put these brackets on. Those ones are really easy. And then I got the new ones right here, which go into these end links here. So we can get those all together. Get it all back under the car there. Then I'll clean up these calipers, get the new brakes on, and get the whole front and back put together and get it back down on the ground. Alright, so got the bushings and everything in there. I'm gonna have to lower the car to get that to line up to bolt it in, just because of the suspension geometry and all that stuff. So I'll bolt that in once I get the wheels on and get this bad boy back on the ground. But now we are on to the brakes here. I'm gonna hit these just with a wire wheel just to kind of get a bunch of this road grime off. I already did the other sides, but try to get like a before and after of these guys. So this is what we're working with pretty much. I think I already recorded getting the rotors and getting the calipers themselves off. Neat trick is to stack up some wood here if you're going to be working on them while they're still connected to the car. It's very handy to have that like that. Alright, so we want to get all of the old hardware and stuff off. It's hard to see because I have this light set up. That's better. So there is this pin up here that goes between the dowel pins. That's what the pads slide along there. So you can just like push this down, and it's just goes through this hole here. Let's see if I can get it with one hand. Oh, yeah, there we go. So you get that out, and then you can just pull it out pretty much both of the sides. I got a kit that has all new hardware, so we won't need to be reusing that. And then, if your car is very old like mine, these pins are probably going to be pretty stuck in there. Got a little rubber mallet that can get them going here. You probably want to hit these with some PB Blaster just to kind of loosen them up, since those are very corroded, I'd imagine. So I'll let that sit a while. But once you get these pins knocked out, I got them most of the way. You might want to use like a screwdriver and then kind of tap it out that way. There's a little lip on the bottom here. Once you get those out, then you can get this tab off. This just hooks onto the pads themselves. So you can see you got that off there. But it's held in with the pin. But you get that off. And then these pads, these ones are very stuck in there. I might have to tap them out, but those should just slide out. While I wait for that PB Blaster to do its thing, I'm going to hit this guy with a wire wheel to get it kind of cleaned up. So this is them cleaned up some more. I'm not going to go through and like polish them. They'll just get dirty again, and you know it's behind the wheel anyway, so no one will really see it. But we got those pins out. I recommend finding yourself a long-handled or long, regular-sized handle, just a long screwdriver, sticking it through that hole and tapping it out that way. But then this clip will just come off. These are old and kind of stuck in there, so you can maybe tap those out a bit. Went through with the wire brush, just kind of cleaned up the inside some. What you want to do also is get these pistons back down. The new brake pads, you can see here, these are the old ones. These are the new ones. New ones are quite a bit thicker, just because they're not worn down, you know. So those would not fit over the rotor when we go to install them with these this far out. For that, there's tools that you can get for that. I got this guy right here. It's just one of these clamps that you can like tighten down. I definitely need two hands, so I can't really film it. But you just kind of put that on there, and you squeeze it down. The big circular tips here help with that, and then just do that for all four of them. There is all of those pistons pressed down. As you can see, way more room in there. Probably wipe down the inside a bit more, but now we are ready to install all the new stuff. Forgive the awful lighting, by the way. But we got this hardware kit that is 2 new dowel pins and then 2 of these B-clips. It looks like stock it only has one, just this guy right here. But I really don't see a reason not to use 2 of them. That's what the kit came with. That's what I see a lot of people online have anyways. So I'll use both of those. And then you are also going to want a kind of grease. I'm using dielectric grease. There's a lot of different greases you can use. They make like actual brake component greases. I don't have any of that though, and I really don't want to go to the store again. And I heard you could use dielectric grease, so I'll just use that. In terms of what to grease, here we have one of the new brake pads. You want to kind of just grease any metal parts that are going to be making contact with each other, excluding, of course, the pads of the brakes themselves, because you don't want to grease that. Friction is kind of what you want there. So you get the edge of these so they slide up and down nice and easy, both sides on both pads. And then you also want to grease the dowels. Now you just get those greased up, since the rotors or the pads are sliding up and down on them. You of course want to get them lined up with the holes here being on the outside edge where the pins go in. Yeah, you can see the hole for the pin there, and those pretty much just slide in. You can see they're all greased up, so they'll slide back and forth pretty easy. The top one won't really stay in. I'm going to need 2 hands to hold that in. So we have our greased up pin here, and and that goes through the hole right there and up through the, God, it's hard to do this with one hand, sorry, and through the hole in the pad there. And this is where it gets tricky, and I don't have enough hands to record this, but this guy right here, it goes into these holes on the brake pad there, the little hooks on the end, and then the ends wrap around the pin there. So might have to fill in the blanks with what I'm doing here, but we'll get the other pin started, get that on there like that, get the second pad up there, and then you push both the pins through them. This other guy right here goes on the same way. It also goes in the same hole as this guy for some reason, but it's pretty straightforward. This is it with those pins in place. So then you just have to bend these tabs. They're a little stiff, which is, I guess, what you want, but you get those set into these holes on the brake pads. Let's see if I can do it with one hand. So once you get those lined up there, then what you want to do is get this last little piece on. The ends of this guy go through the holes in the pins there, so that clips through right there just like before. And that is this whole caliper done. So new hardware, new pads, got it cleaned up. You can look in there, and you want to make sure that the pads are against the calipers in there, just so everything's lined up. When you get in and you start the car and you push the brakes, it'll all, it'll be forced into being correct. So it's not too much to worry about. So I'm gonna get that new rotor, throw it on there, and then get this caliper bolted back on. So got the rotor on, should seat just all the way down there. The rotors I got, the holes for those screws don't line up perfectly, which is very annoying since I can't use the just the regular set screws like that guy. But you don't really need those. Those are just there to make it easier for putting it all together. So what I usually do is I put just a lug nut, tighten it down, just so it's flush there. Makes getting the caliper on easier. Got those bad boys torqued down back there. Brand new rotor and pads, all looking nice and fresh. Just a little dirty, but it's cleaner than it was before. See, it's also nice and shiny and new on the front. Not really the back, but I'm allowed to cut corners. So yeah, now we can go ahead and get the wheel on. And that's that with the wheel back on. Now we can lower this guy back down, finish torquing the wheels up, and then bolt up the sway bar. Got the car back on the ground now, which aligned things better for the sway bars there. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish getting those bolted in. Still taking quite a bit of effort to get them into place, but I'm sure that's to be expected. Brand new bushings and all. But once it's all bolted in, I'm sure it'll be perfect. Alright, got the sway bar all bolted down. Looking pretty fresh with the new bushings. And that should be everything for the whole front end of the car. Another thing I noticed while I was down here is this ball joint for the steering. You can see it's all collapsed like that. That's up like really close to it. We can compare that to the other side there. And you can see that one, it's like a full half inch maybe away, and that's like completely on it. And when the car was driving before, I noticed when I'm turning, I would hear some clunking coming from the right side of the car. And if I just kind of take the car and try to push it back and forth a bit, you can hear that clicking noise. It was a lot louder in the car, but I'm pretty sure that is that steering boot there. That's the only thing that's really broken. So yeah, I guess I'll have to look into getting a new one of that too. Shouldn't be too hard. I did the same thing on the other side, taking these nuts off here to do all this. I'll have to see how much that'll cost though. That's the biggest thing. Looking pretty good. Front end is done, essentially, aside from this little piece. The engine, yeah, that's missing. But we got the mounts and everything for it. But I think we are ready to start putting that engine together so that we can get it in there. I'm thinking what I'll probably do is go ahead and get the engine put together, get it in there, get it running, just because I really want to do that, you know. I really miss driving this car, and I'm really looking forward to building the engine. So I think I'm going to go ahead and do that. I will probably do the rear brakes and the rear bushings. I'm thinking once I have all that in there, just so I can kind of move it in more and, I don't know, move some stuff out of the way. But I don't know. I just really want to drive it, so I want to get that done. And then I'll probably worry about the rear brakes. You know, they were good enough before, and the front ones matter more anyways. So rebuild that, put it in there, get it running, rear brakes.